Atmospheric. That might be one way to describe Alien Isolation, and it'd be a good one too. I don't need to talk about any previous Aliens games, especially not ones from recent history. The only thing I will say about them is, this is nothing like them. This is what it should be like. Survival horror with a menacing, unkillable foe. Not a progression of corridors with aliens acting as pop-up targets. I mean, there are corridors. Lots and lots of corridors, actually. But let's start at the beginning.
Ripley? I'm Samuels. I work for the company. It's about your mother. We think we may have found her, Amanda.
You play as Amanda Ripley, Ellen Ripley's daughter. She works for the Weyland-Yutani Corporation and is invited by a company representative to join them in a mission to retrieve the Nostromo's black box from the failing backwater Sevastopol station. When the crew arrives, they find the Sevastopol in a state of disrepair and in the hands of looters, with something killing off the humans one by one. Now, as interesting an idea as that might be, there is a slight whiff of the Jaws 4 coming off this story. Like, the alien really has something against the Ripley family. But, you know what? Doesn't matter. It's a good enough premise that you just leave it. Now, try not to spoil anything. The story takes no risks and throws no unnecessary twists, at least not for anyone familiar with the Alien franchise. I'll be as vague as I can here, but there's a main character who you might suspect something about. There's some clues dropped about him, but then someone just flat out mentions in passing what it is that you think about him, and Ripley's just like, yeah, no, fair enough. As far as I can see, it wasn't meant to be a twist, but I'm aware that I might have somehow missed some big reveal at some point.
Come on!
I'm Ripley.
Where'd you come from? Ripley?
Off station.
And look, there's even a real Scottish guy with a real Scottish accent.
Well, that's good news.
Oh, what's he like?
Something blue just now. Robbed this whole place.
He'll be fine.
But lady, that's the least of our problems.
The characters are actually really well portrayed. Even the normally cold and businesslike company representatives have motivations beyond, we work for the company and we're evil. But that brings me to two bad points. First, look at the shitty lip syncing.
Need as much sleep as the rest of you. I was just inspecting the Torrens facilities. A well-maintained ship. I realize it's a very similar model to...
The Nostromo.
Yes.
It is absolutely atrocious and it genuinely detracts from the experience. I think they might have done this so they had more wiggle room, more freedom to change the script as necessary. Fair enough. Oh, but still.
Open it. I'll do this one. You go to the one on the other side.
Okay.
Second, the human enemies in the game. Now they are so close to being superb. Get close and they'll warn you off.
Stay back!
Sometimes. Sometimes they'll just immediately open fire. Now while they will shoot at the alien if it appears, if a human survives somehow, it will start shooting at you straight away. Maybe being a bit demanding here, but it would have been very nice to have a little shared moment of relief or something. Even have Ripley try to reason with him. Just something.
Hey,
Identify yourself.
Ripley. From the Torrens.
Relax, kid.
Just a quick note on Ripley herself. Now, you relate to her, care about her, and feel protective of her. Not because she's a woman or because you have to watch her die in a variety of hideous ways, but because she's actually a well-written person. They've kept her personality vague, understandably, but there is a weight of expectation that simply comes from the description, Ellen Ripley's daughter, and her actions really live up to that. But arguably, the biggest character in the game is Sevastopol Station itself. You will hear people compare it to Rapture and Columbia, but as much as I love those, I'm not sure that I entirely agree. And it is because it's undoubtedly the most atmospheric, most claustrophobic, and the most realistic. Not to mention the flat out best single setting game environment that I've ever seen. And I speak as a huge Alien fan, so I might be a bit biased, but this actually feels like walking through the set of the film. It's like a rabbit warren of 70s technology. You know what? I don't even have the superlatives to do it justice. Even this video isn't enough to convey the feeling of what it's like. But, oh, look at that lighting. Look at the reflections. Look at that smoke. Look at the shadows. I mean, Ripley hasn't got a shadow, but... Huh. Oh. That's a shame. But what about the game? Well, it apparently runs at 15 hours according to Creative Assembly, whereas in total I actually clocked in about 21 hours all told. I was playing on normal, but that was with exploring, dying, reloading, and what have you. For a stealth horror survival game, that's quite a while. And make no mistake, this is essentially a stealth game, not an action game. You could probably replace the alien with a cybernetic watchman and say that the point is to eventually unlock a safe at the end and escape. The mechanics would hold that concept up really quite well. It really is the universe and the alien that sells the horror. That and, you know, all the bodies and the blood-soaked halls and stuff like that. The game gets by on a minimum of jump scares as well, relying on mounting foreboding tension instead. Oh, by the holy Christ! There are one or two though. Now, you could make the argument that the game is essentially a series of go here, press this button. Well, it sort of is. But to be fair, the end of the film was very much a lot of going there and pressing different buttons. There are a variety of different levers that you interact with in different ways. I mean, I know it doesn't sound like much, but it means there's no running into a room, hammering A, and then you're done. If you're being chased, it can be fairly exciting to have to try and remember how to use a specific object. And also, there are some really nice old school looking hacking mini-games, and they actually feel like they fit in. The joy and sometimes frustration of the game comes from the lack of hand-holding. You are left to find your way to the next objective by yourself, and to be honest, you will get lost. But it does add to the tension of the game, although it is slightly diminished by the fact that the game pauses on the map screen. You will be glad of this respite, but there's no denying that it really breaks the flow. Although it's an ideal time to bring up another annoyance with the game. For immersion's sake, items and switches don't immediately stand out in the background. There's a slight golden glow around some things, but it's fairly easy to miss. You will find yourself relying on your map to find items as they're highlighted automatically when you walk into a room. It's not exactly game breaking, but the items you'll be looking for are components that you craft into various items like medkits, noisemakers, smoke bombs and Molotov cocktails. You have to find the blueprints first. There are 3 levels to each item and they are well and truly missable. I didn't actually find the EMP mine until version 3. Making the items is satisfyingly fiddly, actually. You have to hold down the B button, select the item, press the left bumper button, and then select each individual component to add it to the blueprint. It seems like an unnecessarily annoying way of doing things, but then you realise that as the items get more complex, they physically take you longer to make, and the game doesn't pause whilst crafting, so there's no building a Molotov in the heat of a firefight. It's a simple system, but a really effective one. Now, of all of these consumable items, I didn't find any of them absolutely indispensable. I found that I held on to them for fear that I would need them later on. Same goes for almost all of the weapons that you pick up through the course of the game. I never fired my revolver and ended up with over 60 rounds of ammunition come the end of the game. Although the flamethrower is essential for fending off the alien, you can mostly do without it if you use caution. In fact, you could probably even do without your motion tracker if you use surround sound, but then you'd probably miss out on this brilliant focus effect whilst using it. Ha! Look at that! Oh. Maybe the only essential piece of equipment throughout the game is the stun button for those bastard androids.
You're starting to test my sphere fire. Right then.
There's some bullshit later in the game when suddenly the androids are wearing hazmat suits and they are the exact same model except for the suit, but suddenly they're nearly impervious to all your items and more resistant to headshots.
About Sevastopol's safety protocols. There's no need for this. Unwarranted. You're becoming hysterical. That stings. Oh.
Get that right up you big bald rubbery bastard you. Androids are actually a superb enemy, creepy, relentless and deeply sinister. They really bring to mind Yul Brynner's gunslinger character in Westworld.
There's someone there. Found you. There's someone there that needs assistance. You really should be here. I'm sure this is a misunderstanding.
The androids feel like more of a natural enemy than the humans, although there are never times when you have to kill anyone in the game. There are times when it makes it much easier, but that might attract the alien. It never feels like an enemy, it feels like a nemesis. It is beautifully animated, and it moves with both weight and grace. I don't know what's worse, hearing it clang loudly and quickly through the air ducts, not knowing where it's going to pop out. Hearing it thud around slowly in surrounding rooms, knowing it's close. Or hearing nothing at all. And there's no messing around, it will flat out kill you. And this is made sort of relevant by the save system. It's actually a brilliantly balanced idea. There are no quick saves and only a slight handful of autosaves, but that's much later in the game. Instead, you have spread out manual save checkpoints that take agonisingly long to initiate, all the while leaving you incredibly vulnerable. They are generally spaced out very well, far enough that you don't really want to redo what you just did, but close enough that you don't feel disheartened if you get killed at the last second. In all honesty, there was one point in the game where I had saved at an inopportune time, and I hadn't saved for a while beforehand. That meant every time that I was killed, I had to do this, and I was miles from the next save station. At that point, the alien became a nuisance, stopping the progress of the story and not an object of horror. It was the only point that the game became frustrating to me. Only lasted about half an hour, but everything cleared up after that though. But the alien though, when it's close you can't sprint, shoot, attack with your melee weapon, or it will be on you in a heartbeat. And then you're dead. Immediately. The same can't always be said about other enemies though. They can sometimes fire at you with impunity and the alien won't show up. But then you might sprint to the next bit of cover and bam. But this uncertainty adds a real air of danger to the game. Although the experience with the Alien starts with a genuine element of fear, you start understanding the rules about what you can get away with, but it never becomes rote. It always keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it constantly throws you curveballs. It leaves you paranoid and jumpy. Oh Jesus! Mum? Anyway, I was genuinely worried that the game would fold under the weight of the Alien stalking you for the whole duration of it, but I have to say that Creative Assembly have 100% nailed not only the look and general feel of Alien, but its pacing and the soul of the original film. Now, the length of the game actually translates well to a sort of elongated version of the film, obviously extended out for value for money. Can't say enough about how amazingly they've done in regards to paying service to the film and bringing something new to the table. But despite the wonderfully paced escalation and tense conclusion, the end actually feels too much like sequel bait. Although, maybe I just wasn't quite ready for the story to be over at that point. Something I haven't actually touched on is one of the most important things in the entire experience. The overall sound design. The klaxons, whirring motors, and the beeps all sound authentic. But the music is on another level. It is sublime. And not just the soundtrack either. The incidental music is cued perfectly. The slow build as an enemy hunts you. And that musical stab when the androids hit you. Nasty. So, all in all, I think I'm obviously going to say that this is a brilliant game. I can't say it's fun, it can get downright stressful at times, but it is an exhilarating experience. It not only works well as a game, or even as an adaptation or continuation of a well-known series, but it adds to it in a big way. It fleshes out the interplay between corporations and its universe by introducing the self-titled second-tier Seegson company. There are numerous emails that show the interaction between Seegson and Weyland-Yutani. Even the departures board speaks volumes on the scale of the universe. I was a big fan of the concept of the colonial marshals in the game as well. They're like a colonial police force, a bit like federal marshals in the Old West. I, for one, would love to see more set in this universe. And it wouldn't even have to involve the alien. There's so much available. There's something to do with transport, or the colonial marshals, or they could maybe even make an entire game set on another planet with the colonial marines. That would make a great game. Somebody should really get on that. Speaking of which, I am so glad that Sega never gave up on the Aliens franchise. It would have been an easy thing to do after... well, never mind. This is Wool, signing off. Oh, come on, you knew that was coming. Either that or it was going to be a cheesy shot of the alien killing me. Hooray!